Okay, folks, we're on here with the live DBA 3.0 Q&A, and we're going to be talking about stuff in here in Develos Antiquitatis 3.0. As you know, I'm a big fan of these set of rules. Mitch and I both like them a lot, and Mitch is unable to join me this week for this little session, so maybe he'll chime in. Maybe we'll have some words of wisdom. If you can figure out how to do this. Usually he's just kind of along for the ride. So this does involve you guys also coming in and asking any questions if you have there. We'll leave that towards the end. Some people have submitted some questions that they may have about this rule set that they may want answered, and I will try to do my best and answer that for them. Okay, so we got a few questions of people that have asked here, and you know, I'm going to try to do these once a week. We're not doing our regular game session here until this situation that I'm not going to talk about it other than whenever it gets resolved. If it gets resolved, we will not be back to our head-to-head videos as you are used to seeing us on. So we've got some other videos that we are going to do. So I want to update you guys with something else that I found out. As you guys may or may not be aware of, I'm doing this on this specific Facebook page because I do have a YouTube channel that has a bigger footprint, but I'm unable to do live sessions on that yet because I stream through mobile. This is all done through my phone, and I wasn't aware that I'm actually able to do that on my computer, which I didn't have a laptop until like 3 weeks ago. So I am able to do that on my laptop, so I may give that a shot. The only problem is that my phone connection, pretty much anywhere I go, is always 4G. I have really good phone service, so it's pretty much seamless. When you end up going to streaming from the laptop, which I do have a camera and everything on there, the problem with that is it's not, now you're not going through my phone, now you're going through my internet. And this neighborhood I live in is notorious for having really poor quality internet. To put it into perspective, I also do video games, not computer games because I've gotten out of them since for a while now, but I do occasionally play on the Xbox One, and they did a little, I picked up a game, The Division 2. I picked it up over Christmas. It was just too inexpensive to pass up. I think it was for $12 US. But anyways, I hadn't played it for like 3 months. I had other things I was doing, and I decided to give it a whirl. And lo and behold, after uploading, installing it, which took quite a bit of time, a couple hours, 3 hours, there was a 60 gigabyte patch that I needed to put in, and that took all of 28 hours. So by the time I decided to do it, I wasn't even able to play the game in the same weekend. So the internet here is just piss poor, if through the landline, so through the DSL, sorry. We can barely even stream one thing. So we'll give that a shot. Maybe it'll work out, or maybe we can put these on YouTube where we can have a bigger footprint. But for right now, this is what we've got going on with Facebook, and I hope you guys enjoy it and find this useful. And if you want to do my YouTube channel, it is Tony Aguilar. Just do a search for that. Probably throw in DBA behind it, and you're going to find I've got over 100 videos on there. So and more being added as we go. So, but anyways, let's get down to the nitty gritty. I've got some questions that people have submitted, and if any of you guys want to chime in and ask any other questions, like I mentioned, we'll leave that towards the end. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. The first question is going to be from Joe Coton, and I'm going to do my best and say where you guys are from, because really this is DBA is a worldwide phenomenon. People are interested in it from all corners of the world. But Joe Coton is right next door. He's from Jacksonville, Florida. And he comes and has come down a couple times and played with us. And of course, the conventions that we have in Florida and Historicon, he does attend those as well. So he wanted to know about elephants. He wanted to know how to use them and the tricks of elephants. So the thing about elephants is that, everybody wants to use elephants because if you come from another wargaming background that's not ancients or something like that, they don't really have elephants in, say World War II or Napoleonic warfare, if that's what you're used to, American Civil War. It's kind of unique to ancients and medievals. And so people are always want to use elephants. And they are kind of unique because they are not, as some people think, they're not the tank of ancient combat, as some people may have you think that they are. But we'll go into the details of them, and we'll go ahead and show a little elephant down here. We'll see how this is. Let's see if we can get this thing to behave, and see if you guys can get a good view here. Good evening, Jeffrey. You're up in New York State, are you not? I believe you are. Hold on. This thing, my microphone has a little fuzzy thing on here. We're going to take that off and have a little bit less of a shadow. And hopefully you guys don't have a lot of echo with that. I don't know if the fuzzy thing is helping that much, but we took the thing off. It looks kind of like one of these things. So we took that off. Hopefully you guys don't get too much of an echo. I am in my little painting office, man cave sort of thing. Although we don't play in my man cave. Okay. I guess we can get most of that in there. Okay, so let's talk about this little elephant we got here. Okay, so there's the things about elephants. The first thing you need to know is that they cost an additional pip to move. Okay, that a lot of people like to refer to it as it costs double. Well, that's not necessarily true. It depends on it depends if the commander's gone or not, or if you're out of. Sorry, I'm looking here for some other troops here. Oh, it depends if the commander is within command range or not. It ends up. Hey, Peter, how you doing there? Peter's over in the Czech Republic, I believe, or I think it may be called something different now. Is it Czechia now? I still call it the Czech Republic. But hey, Les, and you're out in the UK, so good. We've got the whole world chiming in here. So about elephants, it is not like a lot of people like to refer to them as being costing double. They don't. They cost an additional pip. And what that means is that if, say, the general in the army is dead or he's out of commission, it's not going to cost 4 pips to move him. It's only going to cost 3. So it's going to cost an additional pip. Most of the time, it's going to be 2 pips. And if you move him in a group with some other guys together, it doesn't really matter what it is. It's going to cost 2 pips to move this whole group. Okay, and that's one of the things that you got to know about them. And it doesn't matter, just like anything else, if there's a horde moving in with a stand with them. Okay, it's still going to cost that additional one. So if you've got multiple elephants, it's definitely useful to have them in a group together. If you start splitting them off in a line, you're going to run into pip issues. And I know if you've watched any of my videos, I'm big on keeping your groups together because you never know when you're going to roll that 1 or 2. Which you've got a lot of elephants. A 2 is almost like rolling a 1 for pips. So they do cost an additional pip to move them. Now, one thing that I want to mention is they don't always cost 2 pips to move them, and they don't always cost 3 pips to move them. Sometimes they cost 0 to move them. What? What are you talking about, Tony? What are you smoking over there? Well, in the elusive set of rules, and I'm not going to look it up there, you'll have to find it. If you move along a road, your first moving along a road, assuming you move your full movement, costs nothing. And it's really easy to realize that, oh, okay, it costs 1. It doesn't mean it costs 1 less. It costs nothing. So it doesn't matter if the unit is an artillery unit, if it's an elephant unit, it could be a horde, it could be anything on its first move in any in that bound is going to be 0. So that is something to keep in mind. You can put an elephant on a road and help yourself out with the pips. So, but that's assuming the road is going where you need it to go. So most of the time, you need to plan on them spending 2 pips to move these guys. If you definitely want to keep them together. If you put them on like opposite ends of the line, which is probably what you'd want to do, you're going to be expecting you're going to need some big pip dice later on in the game. So that is probably the most important thing about elephants is to keep in mind, is they do cost an additional pip to move. What movement rate do they move at? Well, they move 3 base widths, okay? So they move, well, in good going. So they move the same as knights. Actually, they move, oh, okay. You said the sound sounds better without the fuzzy? That's good to know, because I don't really have any wind on here, but that's good to know. You guys definitely want you to hear me, or well, I'll be able to be heard. I'm a loud joker, but echo issues. But that's good. We want you guys to have good understanding here. So so they move just like a knight. If you think about it, they move just like a knight. They move 3 base widths in the open, and they move 1 base width in bad going. Okay, this is a unit, it is mounted, and it is -2 in bad going. So they really want to stay outside of bad going. They really have no business in being out there. That's really not the area that they need to participate in. So you need to keep them away like that, just like if they were knights. Okay, they're impetuous like knights. Okay, so I know I always call them impetuous in my videos. I think it might actually means that they pursue. But I have a lot of trouble saying pursue when they like eliminate a unit. What are you pursuing? Like the dead bodies? Maybe the ghosts that are leaving the battlefield. But regardless, if they eliminate a unit, if they go into contact with, say, these Janissary bow, and they eliminate the Janissary bow, they're going to pursue a full base width. That's their default move, is a full base width pursuit. So one thing that makes them really handy is if they are, say, at the end of a line, and say you've got something going on like this. Let's get us some more Turks here. These are the last 2 battles I had in my box, so we're going to be using some Chinese and Turks here. You got a battle line formed up like this, okay? And you got the elephants on the back of the line, say using them to close the door, which is normally what you want to use is you want to use them as the hammer or the anvil. I don't know. You want to use the guys that are as punching. But if they eliminate this unit and you want to do this combat first, this would be a bow on a bow. This would be 2-2. This elephant on the flank would make them a 1. So it's a 2-1. If the Sung crossbowmen outscore the Janissaries, they'll die. They actually won't. They won't do the pursuit, because remember, the pursuit is only from if it's the primary unit. But you can get in a situation, for instance, where there might be another combat like this, and well, I know what I'm trying to get at, but I'm not sure if I can display it properly. But you can get in a situation where you could have a combat like so. Oh, here you go. Okay, let's say you got this combat going on here. Okay, these guys like say are the end of the line and they turn the face. If they eliminate these guys, they would pursue, and all of a sudden now you have a door closed situation on this next element. So that's something you can keep in mind by using that pursuing or impetuousness that most people don't think about. But generally they use them as a battering ram. You put them in the middle of the line and you batter somebody down, okay? Because they are a +5 against foot in close combat, and they are a +4 against mounted in close combat, okay? So, and they quick kill knights. By outscoring knights, the knights are dead. So you definitely want to send them against knights. That's going to scare most people off, unless your last name is Harbach, because those guys like to charge knights and elephants and succeed by doing it. Just to put it into perspective, a knight against an elephant is a 4-4, okay? But the elephant has the quick kill on the knights. So that's something you need to keep in mind. That's what they're not good at. So basically they can outscore bow. They're really good against bow, okay? Because if they go into contact with a bow, the bow's a 4, and they're a 5 versus foot. And if they outscore the bow pick up, because the bow pick up from any mounted in close combat. regardless of terrain. So the bow could be in bad going, it could be in rough going. It doesn't matter if they get outscored by mounted. That's something people don't really know. It's probably because it's a change from previous versions. But the bow could actually be in the woods, and knights could charge the bow, and the knights would be a 1, and the bow would be a 4, and the knight could roll really well, and the bow might roll really badly. If the bow get outscored, the bow die. So the bow get outscored by any mounted and any going at all, they're eliminated. The fact that the elephants are a 5 against them makes it that much easier to use them against them. So they're really good against bow, and they're still defend as a 5. So if you shoot bows at mounted, which is one thing I love to do, if you're an elephant and all of a sudden you're a 5, so they're a little bit more resilient to that. So what do you want to avoid elephants from getting into? Well, you want to avoid, the main thing you want to avoid is, as I like to call them, let's get the right one here, Uncle Artie. Okay, you don't want artillery to shoot at elephants. Okay, because if the artillery outscores the elephant, elephant's gone. Okay, 1 shot, 1 kill. So that artillery shooting. Now, once you go into close combat, yeah, you could probably throw an elephant into an artillery and be okay, because the artillery, I don't believe, can kill anybody in close combat. So the artillery would still be a 4, elephant would be a 5. Well, in this case, let's say we don't have an overlap here. Okay, 4 to 5. If the elephant outscores the artillery, artillery is gone. Okay, and if something happens, they got scored by artillery in close combat, it would just be a recoil. Okay, so you don't want to get shot at by artillery when you're the elephant. Okay, definitely something to keep in mind. The other thing that they're not really good at is dealing with Soloi. Soloi are only a 2 versus the elephant, and the elephant's a 5. Okay, but let me get some measuring devices here so you guys can see what the ramifications of something that is going to happen here. Here, look, Pinky's here. I don't think we'll need to roll her, but okay. So when elephants are fighting Soloi, they're a 5, and the Soloi is only a 2. And the Soloi are really good for playing keep away and keeping the elephants tied down. If the elephants just outscore the Soloi is going to recoil, and the elephant's going to pursue. The pursue is easy to remember when you're talking about actually pursuing someone that's there, but when the unit's eliminated. Anyways, you guys get the point. You know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that. So just in a simple outscoring, the Soloi is going to fall back. It's 20. Recoil 20. The elephant's going to pursue in. Okay. If the elephant doubles the Soloi, which happens really often, okay, because the Soloi is only a 2, okay, and the elephant's a 5. So if the Soloi get doubled, the Soloi is going to end up fleeing to here. Okay? Let me make sure this is zoomed in here. We got a autofocus there. One of these days I'll figure out how to use autofocus on my camera. Okay? And then the elephant is going to advance its full 20. So it doesn't eliminate the Soloi, but it keeps them tied in. Okay? So this is, the Soloi are specifically useful, are very useful in using them defensively against the elephant, because if you do this maneuver, if the elephant moves into this just to push the Soloi out of the way, so in other words, if it's the elephant's bound, and he ends up getting the Soloi to flee, okay, the Soloi's out here, elephant's like so. Now it's the Soloi's bound. They have enough movement that with a pip of 1, they can come back over here and engage him. And now in this situation is, the elephant would be now down to a 4. It'd be still a 2 for the Soloi, but now he's got an overlap on somebody. So usually when the elephant pursues, there's a good chance that he pushes on the Soloi. There's a good chance that he'll be double overlapped. So his 5 is going to start looking more like a 3 and a 4, where it's easy for the Soloi to outscore him. If the Soloi just outscore the elephant's gone. Okay, so that's one of those things that elephants are. Most people use them as the initial hit to punch a hole, kind of like bowling for people, as I like to call it. But they can get tied down, and once the Psiloi mixes it in with them, you know, the best thing, the most that's going to happen is the elephant's eventually going to die, or the Psiloi will eventually get crushed against the end of the board. I don't think that I've ever seen that happening, and that's only because, you know, if an elephant's coming, don't start engaging them when you're really close to your back end. But, you know, most battles don't happen towards the edge of the board. They're towards the edge of the backboard. They usually happen somewhere in the middle. That's usually not the issue. But if you use the Psiloi defensively against the elephant, that really can neuter the elephant. Okay? So really good against knights, really good against bow. Auxilia, same thing. If they get outscored by the Auxilia, the elephant dies. Well, the Auxilia is a 3, and the elephant's a 5. So, but the Auxilia can be killed by the elephant. The elephant cannot kill the Psiloi at all. If you double the Auxilia die with an elephant. So, in my opinion, the Psiloi is better to use against them because the Psiloi can't die, period. You know, so... So artillery's good against him, Psiloi's good against him, Auxilia can be good against him. Light horse also quick kill elephants, okay? But light horse, remember, is a 2, and the elephant's a 4 as mounted. And I've played some of the versions of DBA. I don't remember where camels fit into the thing. I know camels quick kill knights. Do camels quick kill elephants? I don't think they do. We don't play with camels very often, and honestly, we don't play with elephants that often. Camelry. They flee. Camels actually flee from elephants if they're outscored. Okay, that's interesting. And elephants. No. The other thing is if you throw elephant on an elephant and they get outscored, one of the elephants will flee. Okay, I don't have another elephant here handy, but if this artillery happened to be another elephant, ends up being, well, they're both mounted, so it's a 4-4. If one outscores the other one flees. Now, the other thing you got to keep in mind with elephants is elephants are really deadly to those folks that are around them, even if they're on their side, okay? Because a recoil from an elephant could mean your doom. You could have an elephant when it recoils, say you've got this light horse, okay? And let's say it's not a light horse, because if the light horse outscores the elephant pick up. Let's say it's this bow, okay? We'll put Mr. Light Horse over here, okay? Like this is a demo game, and I still like keeping things organized. Chaos is bad. Okay, so it's the bow's turn, let's say for instance. And they move against the elephant like this, go into close combat. Elephant's going to turn to face. All right. Elephant's a 5, bow's a 4. If elephant outscores the bow picks up. Elephant ends up being there with no bow. Okay? Bow's a 4, elephant's a 5. If the bow outscores the elephant, or if they roll the same, if they match, okay? So the bow's a 4, elephant's a 5. If he rolls a 3, 8, and the bow rolls a 4, 8, it's solid foot. This is mounted recoils from solid foot. Or if they get outscored, if they get a recoil, he's going to recoil one entire base width back. And anybody that's in his way, his friends, is paved. So this horde would die, and the elephant would end up being over here, okay? It could happen that there's multiple units, okay? You could be in a situation where, let's say, we'll just keep using the same scenario, okay? We got a bow here against an elephant. And the elephant are in a column behind 2 other bowmen, okay? But the bowman's outscores the elephant. This guy dies, and he completes his recoil. Okay? So you just eliminated 2 units for that. So do not stand behind an elephant, okay? Bad things, okay? Something to keep in mind, all right? What else about elephants? Keep them out of bad going. Talked about what they're good against. Oh, they're cute. They're fun to paint. Everybody likes them. I like them because they're fun to paint and they're cute. I don't know that every army I have to use them in. I like them. These guys, this is actually part of my Southern Dynasty's Chinese army. It was a 2.2 army, and it had some heavy foot, some shooters, and then an elephant, a knight general, a cav, and a light horse, that kind of thing. I had this front line of the heavy foot and the bows on the flanks, and then I would have like the cav on one flank and a light horse on the other flank. I'd have the knight general in reserve, of course. You guys know how I play. And I'd also keep him in reserve. I usually would do something like I would keep the knight general and him behind the lines to kind of plug holes. Okay, so when need be, if he did go into combat, he was usually fighting somebody that already had an extra overlap. I didn't want to just throw him out there and he penetrates in the enemy line and he's out there all by his lonesome. So I tend to like to use impetuous units more defensively. But that's just me. You don't have to use them that way. That's just the style of play that I happen to prefer. Okay, so Joe, hopefully that answers your question about elephants. Main thing is remember they're going to take an extra pip to move them, and keep your guys away from them. Think about where you need to keep their flanks secure, because you don't want to get them in a situation where they're going to turn where they're coming from and end up paving people in the back. So that is something you need to keep in mind. Cover your flanks with the elephants. So they're okay to use as a flanker as long as they can't be flanked as well and take it out on the rest of your army. Okay, so that is elephants for you, Joe. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, ask another. Okay. Next one comes from Michael Malinowski. He's from Gdansk in Poland. Okay, and he wants to know about. I think wants to make sure he's doing the wheeling, pivoting, and column movements correctly. All right, let's put some terrain out here. We're going to call this a marsh. All right. Okay, so what are we going to use? Let's get the Turks out of here. We're going to get the Chinese out here. You guys don't see many Chinese armies anyway, so that's an opportunity to see some of them. We don't need Mr. Heffalump today. Okay. And let's not use the horde because that has special situations. Let's get another crossbow here. Okay. Yeah, this is a little TV tray I set up here, and I think it works out pretty well. Still wish I had a cameraman, but doesn't pay very well, so I didn't see anybody volunteering for it. Okay, so wheeling's simple, okay? And this is a change from previous versions of DBA. Get rid of this old marsh guy for now. In previous versions, well, I'll tell you what the rules are, and then we'll talk about what's different, okay? You have a group, and you want to wheel. You don't have to wheel. You could have these two guys wheel. You could have these two guys wheel. Wheeling is more than one unit, because if you only have one unit to move, he doesn't need a wheel. You basically can move amoeba-like. You can just move, as long as one corner doesn't move farther than the other, and then it's maximum move, which in the case of these knights is 3. You can move this corner all the way out to here as long as this one doesn't move as far. Okay, you measure front corners. So it's pretty liberal as far as moving one unit. You can move as kind of like in a side slip maneuver. Okay. If you're moving as a group and you only want to spend one, then you've got to do a wheel. Well, you can move forward and not wheel. The way a wheel works is if you want to move this whole group and wheel, you measure this front corner, okay? And you have to move at the speed of the slowest unit. So if you've got these guys that move 2 in good going, okay, 2 base widths, and the knight moves 3, you've got to move at a speed of 2. In other versions of DBA, it was okay. He could move up to 3, and this guy could move too. So you're in this situation where this guy could wheel like so up to that far, and the knight could move that far. So he actually would be able to move. And you could do a thing where you'd have your slowest elements towards the inside of the wheel, and then faster, like maybe you have a knight and a cav and a light horse. So you could extend this line and move them way out there. You can't do that anymore. And that kind of caught us off guard is you have to move at the speed of your slowest unit. So if you have one unit that can only move 2, everybody moves 2. It doesn't matter whether they're on the end of the line or not. Okay? So that's one thing to keep in mind. So you got this group that's combined. You know you're going to move at the speed of the slowest unit, which is the bowman here. Okay? So if you want to wheel, you just put here on the corner, and then you just decide that you can wheel up to 2 base widths. Okay? So this is as big of a wheel they could do in one bound. Okay? And what I mean by that is this guy could go here, this guy could goes here, this guy goes here, this guy goes here. Okay? That's your maximum wheel. Now, you can combine a wheel with some straight movement. Okay? You can, knowing that you have a speed of 2, you could wheel 1. You could wheel half of 1. You know, you could wheel 1 like this. Okay? And then the rest of your group can move straight for the other one. Again, you're still limited by the speed of 2 of the group movement. Okay? And that's really any movement as a group, regardless of whether or not it's a wheel or not. Okay? Because we're going to talk about column moves, and you're still restricted to the speed of the slowest unit. Okay? So this is, and you have to stay in a group, so you can't go into bad going through this because that would break up a group, okay? You can go through rough going, but when you go in rough going, a lot of these units, well, all of these in particular, reduce their speed to 1 base width. So now you're talking about a wheel of 1 base width. So if you had like a plowed field or something like that, okay? As soon as I find one, here we go, a Rocky, okay? Rocky is rough going. It's not bad going, okay? They can group move through here. The problem is they move at the speed of 1 because this is rough going, not bad going, okay? So a wheel of 1 is damn near useless, okay? Because you're only going to get, that's all you're going to be able to do. You're not going to be able to move afterwards, okay? They don't go very far. But you can still group move through this, okay? So, and it's not -2 terrain. So if you do go into combat in here, these guys aren't fighting at -2. Okay, so that is wheeling, and you can do it in, you know, any amount of units. You could have a wheel of 8 units wide, but remember, the wider you go, the less useful you're going to be. Now, you just have to be connected as a group. So you could actually have this guy, see these guys are all lined up on the front, and this guys could be lined up on the back. Not somewhere in the middle. Remember, they've got to be lined up at the front or at the back as a unit. So back corners or front corners. So this guy could be here. That guy could be just like that. That's a group. Okay? You could also have this guy's lined up perfectly with him, and this guy's lined up perfectly with the back of him. This is still a group. Now, you're going to still have to, you know, you're still going to have to wheel at the speed of 2, you know, but you can do a combination of like wheeling for 1. So put him here, this would 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 put him there, okay? And then move forward for another one, okay? So you definitely want to stay in a group if you want to, because it opens up your possibilities of things you can do with really bad pip rolls, okay? Okay, so that is moving as and pivoting and wheeling, okay? You've got to pivot on a corner. So you got to pivot when you go to wheel these guys, you're either going to wheel here or you're going to wheel here, okay? Or in a more simple formation, you're going to wheel here or you're going to wheel here. Pivot on that corner, okay? Okay, either way. All right. Okay. Moving into a column. Okay, so columns are really cool. And columns are a way to get through maybe some terrain that you'd have trouble getting through. Okay? And we're going to ditch these guys. Okay? We're going to bring out some auxilia. Okay. Auxilia and a Saloy. Okay. So here we have our piece of bad going, and here we have our Auxilia and a Saloy. Okay. These guys want to move through here. Okay. But they rolled really bad for pips. So they only roll a 1. Well, they can't group move through here. They could if they were Saloy. If all 3 units are Saloy, you can move through this terrain. Even though they're not slowed by it, it doesn't matter, okay? Because Auxilia, well, these are fast Auxilia, Saloy, these all move 3 base widths, okay? So there'd be no problem getting through this. But the problem is they can't group move through here, and we've only rolled a 1 for pips. You would, if you wanted to get all these guys through here in 1 turn, you'd need at least a 3, because you're going to have to move him by himself, this one by himself, and this one by himself, okay? And that will put them bam, bam, and bam, okay? That would be your 3 pips, all right? But you didn't. You rolled a 1. So what the heck can you do? Because you want to keep moving forward. Maybe you want to put pressure on your opponent, okay? So anyhow, so what you do is you form a column. When you form a column, you have to start as a group, okay? You can't be like this and say, hey, I want to form a column. You've got to already be a legal group, okay? And what you do is you move at the speed of you basically have a leading element you lead off of, and then everybody falls in line. One of these 2 guys falls behind him, and the third one falls behind that. But you got to make sure that no one moves more than their distance they would normally be able to. So no problem him getting here, okay, and no problem him getting here, okay, and that's your column move, okay. That's what a column is. Now, and you can have a column that consists of units that move slow and units that move faster, okay? You can move, like these guys can move 3 through here. These guys can only move 1. So if you're going to try to move them forward, this guy's going to be the guy that's slowing everybody down. So even though these guys could get here and he'd be able to get over here, this guy can only get to damn near here, okay? So your column move of all together would be like that, okay? So it's not very useful when you start putting the slow units moving in a column to going through bad going. Now, you don't have to move through bad going, okay? You can just be putzing around. Say you want to go and let's say you want to go and do what I love to do. Mitch has his things he loves to do, and this is the thing I love to do. I don't know if you've watched videos, is you can, let's use guys that are fast. Let's form a column with these guys, okay? Form them off this guy. And they come in like this, and they come forward, and they hit him and force him to conform over here, okay? So because you are a group, the single element will end up conforming to you instead of you having to conform to the single element. So that's really powerful. I try to do that a lot in my videos, and really, but you know, again, it depends on the situations. If it helps the situation, and if you get the right number of pips to even be able to do it. So that's kind of conditional. But I do like using those flying columns. Okay. But that's how you basically use a column. You got to make sure that you have a lead element and you lead off of it, and none of the other units can move farther than they're supposed to be able to move on their own. Okay, otherwise it's an illegal move. Okay, so Michael, hopefully that was clear. And again, you can form a column. If you're in a column already, you can also wheel. Now you're just wheeling over this frontage, so you can get a lot. You can get a lot farther with places and be able to, you know, move like so. That sort of thing. So definitely stay in a column or a group if you want to. Now, the thing about a column that is terrible is you do not want to be anywhere near a combat when you're 3 deep, ever, okay? Because what happens is, if you look in the rules, if you're a type that can push back another unit, you're allowed to push back 1 more unit, okay? So if you're 3 deep, the front guy, if he gets outscored, he's a 3. Let's put it at this angle, see if you guys can see it. Okay, he is a 3 in close combat. The bow's a 2. If the bow outscores the 3, or in this case, if he ties because he's solid and the auxilia is fast, it'll cause this front auxilia to recoil. You can only recoil one unit. So the fact that there's a second one behind him will make him pick up. So you got basically a quick kill out of nothing, okay? And it doesn't matter that you're not lined up perfectly. You could be in a situation, and this has happened before, where this unit is like this for whatever reason. Maybe these guys went forward and they kept getting pushed back. If you're like this, again, you still can't push this unit back. You can only push one. So you basically eliminate this front one if he gets outscored, okay? So you'd never want columns like that to be in the middle of combat. You want to do them in places where there's no chance of something like this could happen. Because it could be, you know, just a bow shot, okay? It could be a bow shot at this front guy. It's a 2 to 3. If the 3 gets outscored, he's going to pick up because he's got nowhere. You can only push one unit back. So definitely don't keep him 3 deep for no reason whatsoever, okay? Anyhow, and same thing, you don't want to be like this either, because you got to have you need a recoil, okay? Always leave yourself a little smidge of an area if you can, okay? And stay away from combat when you're moving in a column. These guys will freak out or something like that. So that's columns. We use them a lot in our videos. Like I said, I like to use the flying column thing a lot and make people conform to me when I can. You know, sometimes you can't do that, but you know, that's just one of those things. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clear the board for the next question, okay? Because the next question is rules related. Well, they're all rules related, but this one's actually rule book related, okay? Which, in my opinion, are kind of harder to figure out because they're not visual as much. And as much as we love these rules, they are very, I don't want to say cryptic, but they're not worded how they should be worded so that people can understand what they mean, which is the whole purpose of doing these videos. So, okay, we're going to clear these guys off. Kind of put them away where they go. Have to clean that up a little later. Let's move these guys off to the side. Okay, so the next question I had was from Ian Hayward. And Ian is in the UK. And he is confused. He's confused about uses of the terminology in the Army list. So the Army list in the book, you know, when people pick up these rules, they look at the Army list and they're always, let me get a little sip here. They're always wondering, man, the Army lists are really complicated. They look like really complicated algebraic formulas. Well, they do, but they're a lot easier to understand than the actual rules, okay, because there's spaces between the Army lists. They're not all run together. So what Ian specifically was asking about was if you turn here, and I'll turn this book around, and I'm going to try to follow along here. Let's see. Because I'm going to try to have to read it backwards. Let me get up here for a second and see if I can follow along here. What his question is on the Army list here, there's a section here, this is on page 31, troop definitions and terminology. And I'm not sure if this is coming out on the video or not, but I'm just going to go ahead and read it. It's on page 31 if you guys want to follow along. It's the very first page on the Army list where it starts running into book 1 right after that, okay? So at the very top it says troop definitions and terminology. Each troop entry has the number of elements of that sort that can be used, the name, and the type code as defined on page 5. Okay, and page 5 is the beginning where it talks about knights or blades or spears or any of those type of elements. Okay, so these are the items that Ian was in particularly asking about. The use of or between two codes or prefix codes directs that any mixture of those elements can be used. I'm going to go ahead and read this and then we'll go back and look at some examples. The slash between two codes directs that either can be used by all, not some of those elements. If between a mounted and a foot type, it directs that all, not some of, the mounted type can be replaced by the mounted foot type before deployment. Two slashes between two codes means that an element deployed as mounted can be exchanged for the dismounted element during the game but cannot change back. An and or and a plus between two entries directs that both must be used. Slow and foot that are listed as 3, 4, 5, or 6 to a base are classed as fast foot, otherwise as solid foot. Okay. All right. So what the hell did I just read? All right. Well, okay. In a nutshell, let's look at an army list. All right. And you guys that have the rules can probably follow along. And I'm going to see if I can hit the nail on the head and get an army list that encompasses all those things. Okay. Let's do the easy one first. Okay. Let's do the single slash. Okay. A unit with a single slash between two codes or prefix numbers directs that either can be used by all, not some of those elements. If between a mounted and a foot type, it directs that all, not some of the mounted type, can be replaced by the foot type before deployment. Let's go to the Normans. It's book 352. Okay. I believe the Normans. If not, I already have my backup one. I believe the Early Crusaders is another candidate for that. So let's go to the Normans. Everybody knows who those guys are. Okay. Okay, so the Normans, okay? If you look at the list, book 352, and it has 3 units that are 3 milites, which are 3 knights or 4 blades. So 3 units can be either knights or 4 blades, okay? So if the first entry is or between 2 codes and prefix numbers, directs that any mixture of those units can be used. So you've got 3 of those units, and all 3 can be knights, all 3 can be solid blades. You could have 1 knight, 2 solid blades, 2 knights, 1 solid blades, or all 3 solid blades. Any combination in between, okay? They're in parentheses, so any of those particular kinds can be used. So you have full flexibility with that, okay? That's in that army list, okay? If you're looking for the one with a slash, which is actually what I came over here to look, let's look at Early Crusader, which is a book 4 army list. Okay, I believe it's 4-7. No, it's the same situation with them. Okay, well, let's look for the one with a single slash. My son trained, I have one of these armies that has this particular thing. And sorry about not really being prepared, but I didn't get this question until today, so I didn't really, get a chance to really look through here and find them. But let's see here. We'll find it here eventually. Well, I'm going to go to the dismounting one, and that's my Burgundians, okay? It's really easy to find these things in army lists that I personally own, because then you can find out, they're kind of like really easy to remember. But if you look at my early Burgundians, okay, or the later Burgundians, same thing. That's book 476, okay? It has 1 general. It's a 3-knight / 4 blade, okay? So it's a regular knight or a solid blade. The general can be either one, okay? 2 men-at-arms. They're either a knight or a solid blade, okay? Now, the way this reads, I know what it means, but I want to use the actual wordage on there. A single slash between 2 codes or prefix directs that either can be used by all or not some of those elements. If between a mounted and a foot type, it directs that all, not some of the mounted type, can be replaced by the foot type before deployment. Okay, so if you've got, I don't have them handy. I guess I should have probably pulled them out here, okay? If you have this Burgundian army and you go and play them in a tournament, the way we play it is that you actually take the knight and the 4 blade. You can't exchange your army from tournament to tournament, okay? Usually you write in what your army is. These are the guys, like if you have an option of, oh, I took either a 3 blade, or a bow. You write down what it is, and you can't exchange them. You basically have to use that army list all the way through the get-go. The difference is that if you have an army that has the single slash in it, or one that has the double slash, you basically start them with both of them to deploy them. When you tell your opponent, okay, here are the guys that I have. I have a 3 knight or a 4 blade. You know, you show them both units. Now, the units with a single slash between the mounted and the foot, they can be exchanged as a foot one at the commencement of play. So when it's time for you to set up, they can't dismount within the battle. They basically just dismount at the beginning of the battle, just before this scenario got played. So at the time of setup, you would decide to set them up as a knight or a solid blade, either one. So it does give you some flexibility where, depending on who your opponent is in a round, you can decide to be a knight or you can decide to be a blade, but you can't dismount in the middle of play with just a single slash. Now, the other catch is that the way this is written, these 2 men-at-arms in this list, this 476, it's a 3 knight slash 4 blade. Then there's 2 of those. Both of them, you have to either leave them both, set them up mounted, or leave them both on foot. Okay, so that's what happens with some of these armies, and particularly the later Burgundians when I run them. Okay, and that's book 485. They have a similar thing, except they have 3 knights that can be either mounted or foot knights, but you have to pick them all one way or the other. Whereas I probably would have wanted to have like 2 of them as the foot version and 1 of them as the mounted. You can't. You have to pick them all one way or the other. So invariably, when I run this army, I never use the knights mounted. I use them all as the foot because I want to use them. They have a lot of bows, so I want to use them to bolster my bow by providing side support to the bow. And I can't do that if I'm having them in the knight version. And I can't dismount them in the middle of a play with just a single slash. Okay, so that's the single slash. And in particular, when they're grouped together like 3 units that are either knights or solid blades, they all have to be knights when you deploy them, or they all have to be solid blades as you deploy them. You can't do a mix with those. So that's actually pretty limiting for that. Even though you have the flexibility when you go from one battle to another one, you can decide to run them as the knights, or you decide to run them as a solid blade. Obviously you have to decide by the time you deploy, but that does give you some flexibility. But you are limited by they all have to be of that same type. Okay, so hopefully that was the long-winded version of what that means. Okay, so and the same thing happens in that particular list, 485A for the Burgundians. If you look at their archer composition, they have 3 archers that can be either mounted longbow / longbow. So they could be either one. So same thing. You can go from battle to battle. You can deploy them as either mounted longbowmen or longbowmen. You just, when it's time to set them up, they have to be one or the other. So, no, forget what I said that, because it's not a mounted element on another one. They just have to be one or the other. So when you pick those 3 units, they either all have to be mounted longbowmen or all foot longbowmen. Okay. That's not a dismounting type thing where you can exchange them. So forget that part where I said that. So, okay, so let's look for one that has a double slash. And I'm thinking the French do. So let's go to the medieval French. Okay, and no, they do not. They are just like the Burgundians. They set up one way or the other. Interesting. Okay, but this does cover one of the oars here. So if you look at medieval French, book 464C, one of the elements, one of the choices you can have here is 2 archers, which are 3 bow, or pavesiers, which is a spear. It has an oar, so you can pick one of those 2 elements to be a fast bow, and one of them to be a pavesier, or you can build them both to be pavesiers, or both of them fast bow. Because there's an oar between them and they're not grouped together, you can do it that way. Okay, that's maximum flexibility on there. So where is dismounting unit? I used to own one, but they changed them. My Burgundian, my French ordnance used to have guys that could dismount on the fly, but that is no longer the case anymore. So let's find, what do the medieval German armies have it? They're not very common. They used to be a lot more common than they are before. So let's, okay, let's go to a shore. Let's go to a strange place for it where I know there is one. Okay, and this is not where you would normally think. It's not dismounting night, but it is, as soon as I find them. Okay. It is Dark Age and Geometric Greek, okay? If that's book 130A. Yeah, see folks, I don't have any book 1 armies, but I know where they're at. So, book 1 army, for 130A, okay, they can have a general that is in a light chariot, okay? And they can dismount as a fast blade, okay? So that is one unit that when you go to deploy them, they have to deploy as the light chariot, okay? But in the middle of play, you can spend the extra pip to dismount them with the dismounting conditions, of course. But that's, you don't get, if it was a single slash, you could deploy them as either one from battle to battle. And this one, you deploy them always as the light chariot, but then you can dismount them in the middle of play. Okay, so that's one of them. And there's several armies on there. Benjamin Waddington says 156 also has a double slash. I don't recognize 156. I wonder who that is. 156. Oh, the Cyrenian Greeks. Yeah, they got heavy chariots that dismount into spears. There you go. There you go. Same thing. They all have to deploy as chariots, and but they can be dismounted to spears. So that's one thing you need to keep in mind is, because you can't do it on the fly, that might be a situation if, like, let's say you're fighting someone who you know your light heavy chariots aren't good against, but your spear are. You may want to deploy those forces when it's time to deploy them, since you have to deploy them as heavy chariots pretty far in the rear, so that you have time to buy for the guys to dismount. Because remember, dismounting is 1 pip to dismount 1 unit. So this army in particular has the heavy chariot general and 3 other heavy chariots. So you're going to have to roll a 4 for pips. And you can't group move dismount either. So that's going to be 4 pips to dismount them. What if you roll a 1 for pips the first bound? Then your opponent goes. Then he comes back to you again. You roll a 1 again. You definitely want to be, you want to hedge your bets and be not all the way in the front of the fighting if dismounting is definitely something you need to do in that particular battle against your opponent. Just something to keep in mind. Okay, let me look at my Sung Chinese for the other question. So that's the main difference between those two things. That is being able to dismount in the middle of play is cool because you can pull that, but at the same time you have to set up as a mounted element. You can't already. Yeah, okay, Les. Yeah, Tibetans. Of course, how could I forget? Well, if Mitch would have been here, he would have brought them up because he owns the Tibetans. Since I don't own the Tibetans, then I'm not, they didn't come to mind easily. So, Mitch will be glad to know that he is needed after all. No, my Sung definitely have that whole business of the 3/4 blade. You have to pick one or the other, but they only have one of them in the unit. Anyhow, I'm sure I'm going to have to look through here and find out what they can be as. Well, here's another example. Book 356, the Kite and Lyo army. Okay, their mounted can either be knights or chariots, or knights or cavalry. But if some of the units, if you pick knights, they all have to be knights. Okay, you can't have some knights and some cav in them. So take a look at book 356. That's another one that has a single slash there. That's kind of a catch there. Ian, I'm going to have to look and see where I can find those other particular armies. Like I said, I didn't get a chance really to look at it because your question came in today, and I got kind of unprepared. But oh, here you go. Here's one, an unusual army. Book 3, 58A. It's under Buyid and other Dailami dynasties. Book 3, 58A. It's a Baghdad Buyid army. Okay? It has two elements that are archers or crossbowmen. They can either be Saloi, or fast or solid bow, or fast crossbow. Okay, so here's the situation. Let's say you wanted them both as bow. Okay? And if you pick one unit as a fast bow, the other one would also have to be a fast bow. You couldn't take one fast bow and one solid bow. You could take them both solid bows. You could take them both fast bows. Okay, you could take a Saloi and a fast bow, or a Saloi and a solid bow. But if you wanted them both to be bows, they both had to be of the same type of bow. There couldn't be one solid and one fast. Why? I don't know. That's what Phil Barker deemed as what those guys needed to be represented correctly. I'm not sure why. That's just how the rules delineate those. So I'm sure there's other examples. I've certainly encountered them. That's actually not that uncommon. You just have to be conscious of those limitations that you could have on your on what you can make your makeup of your army is. Okay, so but anyhow, that's the three questions that I had people submit. I'm going to put a notice up probably in a couple days of what I'm going to plan on doing the next one of these. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to chime in. And you know, I know that David Cush mentioned about historical battles. He's wanting to do some historical battles using these set of rules that, but he wants to keep the rules the same. That is something that Mitch and I have done. We came up with a Roman Art of War that we did. I want to say it was 5 years ago when DBA 3.0 was first coming out. We did 4 historical battles at a convention, and we wanted people that were new to the game to sit down and play them, and they didn't have a standard start. In other words, they already had some troops on the board. Sometimes one army had 11 units and another one had 15. Sometimes they both had 12. Sometimes they had, and they were historical battles. There were 4 of them, and they were meant to be played in series. So you would play one set, and you would move on to the next one. You move on to the next one. You move on to the other one, and people would just exchange roles. And in 2 of the battles, the Romans kind of had an advantage, and 2 of the battles, the non-Roman had the advantage. And it was interesting, especially the ones where you had to play a battle where it's not necessarily balanced. And so you had to, like I said, it wasn't standard setups. I think the only thing that was common to all of them, they were all on 30-inch boards. So you could have a little bit more maneuverability. But we are going to bring those back. We ran them, and we didn't have a big demand for them because at that time, just like any other rule set, the interest in something will grow and then it'll disappear, and that we kind of put that one in at a lull, and we only had like 4 players or something. We did not have the actual terrain per se, like actual 3D made, like hard terrain, but we did have felt and stuff with the felt terrain on it and everything, and we had bushes and everything. So it looked okay. Ones that you had hills actually looked 3D, even though they weren't very high or anything, but there were some cool battles, definitely. And it's 2 battles you've heard of, and 2 of them you probably haven't. So I know Zama's not one of them, but the Carthaginians are in it, in one of the battles. So, but we will do those in the future, and they have very minor tweaking to the rules. Mainly, I don't remember exactly, but each scenario had some special rules, but it wasn't something that if you played it, it would be very difficult to go back and play the standard game rules, other than the setup, which didn't show up at all. So that is something that we are planning on doing in the future. We're probably planning on doing it later this year, but who knows with the stuff that's going on now, what actually is going to happen. So, so anyhow, let's bring this back to here. So, yeah, I spent yesterday, wife gave me a hand and we cleaned up my room here, and maybe we'll do a tour of it or whatever. I don't have anything super extravagant. As a matter of fact, I commented to her that as far as gamers go, I don't have a whole lot of stuff. I don't have lots of things that I don't use. I don't know about being minimalist, but I'm just not involved in a lot of other things. I got some 20mm stuff that I haven't touched in over a decade, and basically my 15s for DBA that I do, some cars for Gaslands, but pretty much that's all the, I have some 6,000 scale ships as well, some modern ships, but those take up no space. They're literally in a little, almost like a metal cigar box. But yeah, that's pretty much what, we might do a tour of that. So now this is kind of picked up before it gets out of control again. So, but anyhow, this is where we're going to be hosting this for the next weeks here until we get back to normal and makes it out of Facebook jail. No, he's not in Facebook jail. He's just we're not allowed to hold hands anymore. So people got jealous. So anyhow, I hope you guys found this interesting. Please submit your questions, and we do play other rule sets, but pretty much this is what my focus is. I've just devoted so many years to this that my brain's just, what's left of it, burned out from learning other rule sets. So this is where my main focus is on this here. So anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side. See ya.